This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwallpod podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 434 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about Borussia Dortmund routing VfB Stuttgart 5-0 and securing a spot in the round of 16 in the UEFA Champions League thanks to a scoreless draw against Manchester City. And of course, we will preview Saturday's Topspiel away to 4th place Eintracht Frankfurt. For that and more, joins me Lars Pollmann. Hello Lars, how are you doing?
Hello, Stefan. I'm tired and I have a somewhat stuffy nose, so apologies in advance to you and all the listeners if sound quality is less than perfect this time around, but I'm sure we'll pull through. How are you, Stefan?
Yeah, I'm doing obviously excellent because, as you may have heard, I was in Austin this weekend to watch the Formula One race, and it was really an experience of a lifetime. And so apologies that there wasn't a podcast last week. But I was very busy with work, and then, I was also flying to Texas, so which is why we missed a couple of games to talk about, say the 1-1 draw against Sevilla and the 2-0 loss against Union Berlin. And we also haven't really talked about the cup win against Hanover, if I'm honest, but, whatever. I'm pretty sure we have recorded an episode that would have been formidable enough to talk about the loss against Union Berlin a million times on this show. So I do not regret not talking about it. And the Hanover win was almost routine, except that Gregor Kobel was, I think, the man of the match, which, wasn't ideal. But nevertheless, then Dortmund turned around and did rout VfB Stuttgart, which I did manage to watch on the somewhat shoddy hotel Wi-Fi. And having to realize that Austin is indeed 1 hour behind Eastern time, so 8:30 I think I had to be up for it. But I needed to get up early anyway to catch FP3 and whatnot. But it was a very good game with Gio Reyna in the starting 11 for the first time since, I think the Manchester City game, if I'm not entirely mistaken. And it's... I don't know what to say, but Dortmund did look really good and played well from the first minute on. I mean, granted, they scored after, 1.5 minutes. Jude Bellingham, nice assist from Niklas Süle. Lars, obviously VfB Stuttgart are a struggling team in the Bundesliga, and routing Bochum and Bielefeld did not... make a lot to change that. However, I think as a Dortmund fan, you can be just happy that they won a game like this in a comfortable manner, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Stuttgart played a quite naive game, I would say. So they did all the things that you can't do against Dortmund, which is have a bit of lack of intensity, working off the ball, and giving too much space to the fullbacks and Bellingham roaming and Moukoko up front. So I think obviously game state helped Dortmund quite a bit because it was, I think, 2-0 and basically game over after 13 or so minutes. And then to be fair to Stuttgart, I think they held their head high relatively well, especially in the second half when Dortmund stepped off the gas a little bit. I think easily Stuttgart could have scored at least once, maybe twice in the second half, which also I think would have been a fairer reflection of the game, because I don't necessarily think that Dortmund played them out of the park to the tune of a 5-goal difference, despite obviously being the much better team and the deserved winners. But I think it was more a, let's say, 3-1 or so game than a 5-0 necessarily. But obviously the finishing pixie as it is for Dortmund, it's the principle of the ketchup bottle, as some commentators in Germany would say. So first nothing comes out and then everything all at once.
Thanks for explaining it.
I'm not sure that the metaphor is necessarily known.
Well, it only works with the glass ketchup bottle, first of all, because the plastic you just squeeze nowadays. So it might have been lost in the ancient time, because I don't think most people are no longer using a glass ketchup bottle. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, I just think it would be nice if Dortmund spaced out their goals a bit better than they did over the last few weeks. But obviously, you can't really be too mad at a 5-0 win against a somewhat resurgent side. Obviously, as you mentioned, Stuttgart beat the last place team in the Bundesliga and then turned around and beat up on the last place team of the second division in the cup. So I'm not sure how much of a resurgence that actually was from Stuttgart, and anything they came to Dortmund with in their arsenal, I think, was basically ruined after those 30 minutes. The goal by Bellingham from a nice Süle assist, and the Süle goal off a set piece. Bit of a rarity for Dortmund this season. It might have been their first, actually. I'm not entirely sure, outside of penalties.
In the Bundesliga, I think so, yeah. I mean, do you want to count the goal against Manchester City, where it sort of came off a set piece? I don't know. I don't remember much else, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I read that they hadn't really scored off set pieces this season. Obviously, they concede quite a bit from dead ball situations, but quite honestly, I don't think there's too much to say about the Stuttgart game, because there was obviously a huge disparity in quality and talent, and the game was basically over after 13 minutes, so it was nice to see Gio Reyna back on the score sheet, and obviously meant quite a bit to him if you remember how he celebrated with his teammates. It was nice for Moukoko to continue his good run in front of goal, even though against Man City that didn't seem to do him much good. Yeah, I mean, a 5-0, as I said, that might have been more of a 3-0 or 3-1 kind of performance, but you always take those wins, and kind of nice to have games every now and then where you don't need to worry about anything quite early on.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the expected goals from Understat, it was 2.64 versus 0.99. So a 3-1 might have been the fair result if you look at these numbers. But in all honesty, I'm just really glad that after what felt like a very long drought, Dortmund scored a ton of fun team goals. I mean, I would say the Bellingham goal was pretty well crafted. Also, a very nice pass by Süle. I thought the layoff from Moukoko to Reyna was really nice, and obviously Reyna picking out the far post from where he was positioned was a really nice curler. Couldn't quite replicate that against Man City either, but it was good to see him play like that. And also I thought that Gio Reyna and Julian Brandt just flowed very well in the half spaces, and you can just see that Dortmund, I don't think I'm too critical when I'm saying that in possession they do lack a bit of tactical ingenuity to break down oppositions. So having a guy like Gio Reyna who floats very nicely in the half spaces and can make stuff happen just because he is such a good player, just suits Dortmund really well, and makes me very happy that he's back. And I hope we see him as a regular starter more often than not as the season progresses. So that is obviously a big positive in my book. Obviously Jude Bellingham in between scored another worldie, but the other goal, I think Moukoko's really was the easiest tap-in he might score all season. And this is something that Dortmund also just lacked in the past, where obviously chance conversion was an issue, but sometimes you just want to create more high quality chances. And nice layoff there from Guerreiro. I don't have the entire goal in front of my imaginary eye, so I don't even know who got the pre-assist, but I do know that it was all very well played. And I think on top of that, we can be appreciative of the fact that Edin Terzic had the chance to make some substitutions. I mean, Emre Can already came on in the 56th minute for Schlotterbeck, who had a few, thigh problems also. And even Felix Passlack made an appearance, someone who you would, I think, in this in this time call a human victory cigar for Hummels in the 66th minute, and then Hazard on for Adeyemi in the 67th, and Modeste for Reina, and so on and so forth. And I think Marius Wolf played the last 10 minutes for Guerrero. So from that perspective, I think it's a very positive day, and I don't have much to add really, other than that Dortmund desperately need the 3 points, because we will talk about Frankfurt in a second. It's not going to get any easier anytime soon. So that was obviously very positive. Also very positive in my book is that Dortmund are now through to the round of 16 in the Champions League. It was a scoreless draw against Manchester City. This time Dortmund did not fall on their nose late in the game, nor were they punished for a penalty giveaway, let's say, by Emre Can, which is almost a tradition. I don't know what to say. Obviously, we have to talk about the fullback situation. We had I guess it was Hazard sort of as a left back or left wing back, and then Adeyemi as a right wing back, if you will, or Zule more as a right back. I'm not entirely sure how you want to space this out. I think it was a 5-4-1 for most part, and sometimes it was a 4-5-1. So, I think it interchanged quite a lot. Nevertheless, Manchester City probably not playing at 100%, but still an important and impressive result. What are your thoughts on last night's game?
I think you would perhaps be misled by looking at some of the stats in terms of possession and whatever, and think that Dortmund kind of replicated what they did in the first meeting with Man City in England a few weeks ago, in terms of sitting fairly deep, defending in a low block, trying to pull City into kind of an attacking vacuum with no spaces. I think it was a much more positive, if that's the right word, performance from Dortmund, especially in the first half. I think if at halftime Dortmund had been up by 2 goals, I don't necessarily know that Man City could have been too aggrieved with that. I mean, there was I would say, basically a sitter for Moukoko that he missed from a very nice would-be assist from Adeyemi.
And would-be pre-assist from Zule, I want to highlight, because I really liked his through balls playing from that position.
Yeah, and Adeyemi himself had a fairly glaring miss. You already mentioned Reina. I think he had 2 shots across the face of goal, basically, where he just didn't find the far post, as you alluded to earlier. So there were, in the first half, enough chances for Dortmund to be deservedly up, which they weren't. I think in the second half it was kind of inevitable, especially with the subs that Guardiola made, that City would be coming on a bit more strongly. Obviously the penalty save was around the 60th minute, if memory serves. So if Kobel doesn't save that, I'm fairly certain that City ride out a fairly comfortable victory, but
probably yes.
But that's not what happened. Because either Kobel didn't listen to Reina or listened to Moukoko, because there were some disconcerting signals, if you like, at the penalty by Mahrez. Side note, don't know why Mahrez still gets to take penalties. I mean, I guess Haaland out as the standard taker for City, but they still have İlkay Gündoğan, who I know missed against Liverpool back in the day, but he scored for Dortmund in the Champions League final and is the regular penalty taker for Germany as well, so I think he can handle those spot kicks in the future. Nevertheless, I think with energy levels fading a bit for Dortmund and looking at the bench, they didn't really have too many fresh legs they could bring on in the center of the park, which is obviously where City hurt you the most usually. It was kind of inevitable that City would be pressing for that goal, but I honestly don't remember too many chances City kind of played out, if that makes sense. There weren't too many cohesive attacks that Dortmund allowed, so honestly, I don't necessarily feel like or felt like the goalless draw as it were, was ever really in doubt for Dortmund. Obviously, they didn't necessarily push for the winner themselves. I think it was the smart idea not to open up defensively, because I think making the round of 16 is much more important than the relatively small chance of beating City to first in the group. So yeah, overall, making it into the knockout stages with a match to spare is quite the feeling, I guess, because obviously with the schedule being as it is in this truncated World Cup season, it's quite nice for the match at Copenhagen to be completely irrelevant outside of prize money, I suppose.
And coefficient points also very important if you're in pot 3.
Yeah, they are already in pot 2 basically.
Oh, really?
Pretty certain that's the case, given who else is going to drop out of the Champions League and such. But regardless, as we've now have precise proof of, pot 3 isn't the end of the world. And obviously, I also think coming second nowadays isn't the same as it used to be. That might be anecdotal evidence, but I mean, I think right now, as the second team in this group, they might be facing Brugge or Porto, for example, from the Leverkusen group, both of which I don't necessarily think would be the worst draws for Dortmund. And quite honestly, if you look back at these 180 minutes against Man City, I'm not necessarily certain that the bigger clubs, as it were, are going to hope for drawing Dortmund, because I think the trend under Edin Terzic is they are a nuisance to play against the big teams, the teams that can control games, because Dortmund are quite good on the counter. They have a lot of good counter-attacking players, so Adeyemi or Reina or even Malen, Moukoko, Reus if he's fit. So I think Dortmund are not going to be a favorable draw for most of these so-called bigger teams. So coming in second has its advantages for Dortmund.
Yeah, I think you make a very good point, and you can definitely see the trend. And had we recorded after the Union Berlin game, I think we would have massively bemoaned the fact that Dortmund in possession, when they need to control a game or say come back against a very well organized team like Union Berlin, they almost utterly lack the tools. I want to say almost, because they did manage to create chances late in that game, and arguably could have come out with a point or something. But they needed a lot of good finishing and better luck in this game. But nevertheless, I think this is for certain that under Terzic, Dortmund are not a great possession team, and I don't think they're going to be anytime soon. I think if they're going to be, then there is a lot of development still ahead of this team, and maybe it's also just because the focus is currently on other things. But I think it is nice to see, as a Dortmund fan, that this team can retain a defensive shape over 90 minutes. I mean, it didn't quite work in the first fixture against Man City, but it certainly did work here. And obviously, you kind of need to lambast Emre Can for the penalty giveaway, but first, it was a bit soft. It's not like he really hacked him, and I think also he needed to make a play for the ball, otherwise Mahrez would have been open. So I can understand why he risked it, but apart from that, I thought that Emre Can in this role played really well. Now, obviously, you don't want to see Emre Can with the ball trying to dribble through midfield. This is never the player. That's the player he sometimes thinks he is, but not really is. But, in games like this, where he does not have too much possession and can focus on destroying the opponent, let's say, I think, you have to highlight it. Especially I have to highlight it, because I have been very hard on him. So if he plays well or decent, I think it needs to be said. Obviously, having Torgan Hazard play left back, I don't know. I don't know if this is the thing for the future, but at least it was very solid. And I think that Niklas Süle will feature more often as a right back, just also because Thomas Meunier is out now with a broken face, and Niklas Süle looks very decent. I mean, he's racking up goals and assists now, and pre-assists almost. So I'm quite content with him playing there. I think it fits well. Also allows the Hummels-Schlotterbeck combination to prevail as well, which I think in my book is doing pretty well too. I think we have to talk about Hummels in a second, but more importantly, I wanna make a quick point about Julian Brandt, because I think in the recent weeks, also the Union game you can include there, he is maybe, I don't want to say transformed, but maybe that's the right word, into a player that is reliable, that makes way fewer mistakes than in the past, and is also way more aggressive against the ball. I haven't really looked into the Julian Brandt stats yet, because I want to wait a few more games to see, but I think he is making the extra step or so to really close down the opponent and then actually go for the ball, and more importantly, he is very often winning it very cleanly and managing then to do something positive with it. And I think this is a very nice trend, because Julian Brandt has been on our collective shit list for a while after obviously we started out as the Julian Brandt hive, and I feel like now we're creeping all to be back in it. At least I personally am. And I think that is a very positive development for a player that Dortmund did spend the odd 25 million on. And so, I just wanted to say kudos to Julian Brandt. Keep at it. Keep doing what you're doing, because I am very much enjoying it. And the fact that he is becoming a more diligent player and, doing the basics right is just good to see, and, makes him maybe a candidate to stick around longer in Dortmund instead of always being among the rumored players to exit as soon as possible. What do you think, Lars?
Yeah, I think we are all wary of falling into the Julian Brandt trap, which is believing after a few games that he's finally turned the corner. Even though I think the base level that Julian Brandt has given Dortmund over these 3.5 years now, I think, is solid enough. I think he's been basically at least there like 12th man, and most of the time he's actually been a starter. His scoring and assisting output has been decent, if not great. So if you get baseline Brandt, I think it's better than what most people give him credit for, but that's also due to the fact that we all know that potential or the high end of the Brandt spectrum is quite special in some ways, and I wouldn't necessarily say that we've been getting special Brandt performances over the last few weeks, but there's a level of consistency he seems to have found, and also a lack of dedication in working off the ball and making defensive contributions in running, winning the ball back and all that stuff. So I think he himself called it a sort of maturation in his game in an interview with German Sky last week, and I think that kind of putting it nicely. I think there's definitely something to be said for his mindset seemingly having changed, but as I said initially, I think and also, as you have alluded to, it's with Brandt you always have to kind of wait for it to be like this for, let's say, 10 games in a row. So basically, if he keeps this up until the World Cup break and features for Germany, then I'm pretty sure he's going to be in the 26-man selection, but not necessarily playing too much in Qatar. But if he keeps it up till the World Cup break, I think we can say that it was probably from start to finish Brandt's best half season or so in Dortmund, and that's certainly encouraging that a player who's still not old, obviously, but who's been around for quite some time now, having started out so early at 17 at Leverkusen or Wolfsburg even. It's encouraging to see someone like that still being able to make jumps in sort of football development, if that makes sense.
Yeah, certainly. Now, a player who didn't really make a jump in footballing development, but certainly did manage to impress yesterday was, of course, Mats Hummels, and he was a person of controversy in recent weeks, also because of his post-match interviews after the Sevilla match and, of course, the Union Berlin match, where he, after the Sevilla match, in general, criticized the team for lacking footballing IQ and making too many, backheel plays and whatnot. And then I think, without mentioning him, but against Union Berlin, obviously, afterwards, he did criticize Adeyemi for this backheel giveaway that led to the 2-0. And obviously, Emre Can and Gregor Kobel since have said that they do not appreciate the criticism out in public. And I think there were reports yesterday that, Terzic and Kehl have sort of asked Hummels to tone it down a bit as well. Now, obviously, I personally like when Hummels does it. I know not everyone does, going by certain people's burner accounts, but Lars, more importantly, he did come out with a performance of vintage Hummels, I would say, yesterday, and I think overall he's one of the most important players this season for Dortmund when it comes to their overall cohesion and also defensive stability and also maybe mental stability, because Dortmund, when they have fallen apart, it was often without Hummels on the field. So, I would love to vex a little bit more on his performance, but I'll leave you to it, because I've seen you rave on Twitter a little bit yesterday. So if you have something positive to say, then I'll always let you go first.
I basically basically advise people to just look at my Twitter feed then, because I don't want to repeat myself. I think I'm not necessarily a fan of Hummels' inability to walk away from a microphone in good times and in bad. I think sometimes he likes himself or listening to himself a bit too much. But I guess if someone walks the walk after talking the talk, that's fair enough. And obviously, I would actually conflate both games against City. I think Hummels was the best defender on the pitch in both games. And given all the investment that Man City have made in the likes of Ruben Dias and John Stones back in the day, and now even Manuel Akanji and Nathan Ake, and Dortmund obviously have also invested quite a bit this season in Schlotterbeck and Süle, and right now you would be hard pressed not to take Hummels over the lot of them, and including both clubs. So that's definitely something he can be quite proud of. I think there was a lot of talk ahead of the season that Hummels' time at Dortmund was going to be over because of Süle and Schlotterbeck. And even though both of those guys have made a quite positive first impression, Hummels is far and away Dortmund's defensive leader. And it would be kind of a travesty if Hummels didn't go to Qatar with the German national team. And you could even make the case, and people have made the case now after the second City game, that it would be kind of a joke if Hummels wasn't even was not going to be a starter at the World Cup. So two absolutely magnificent, as you said, vintage Hummels performances, which were obviously sorely needed. And I don't know how many other defenders will have that kind of performance against a side like City with Haaland, who obviously wasn't necessarily at 100%. At Dortmund, being pulled after 45 minutes, but still in those 45 minutes, I'm sure he did a lot less than he has done in the vaunted Premier League this season.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, first of all, as you said, he does it all very gracefully, and I just love how he reads the game. It is just really nice to see how he moves out and does the little things right very often, leaves his line, especially against Haaland. I think he did it really well to completely cut him off and intercept. Obviously, he had this moment where he did sort of have the sliding tackle and then recovered with a header, clearing it to the corner, which was, of course, the more spectacular stuff. But I also just think the anticipation and then, of course, the very calmness on the ball and the distribution. It's just really nice to see, and obviously he's in a contract year, and I personally hope that if he can conserve this form, and it's not like he's losing a lot of pace at this point, since everyone has made the joke he is not the fastest as is. I think he can have another year or so, or maybe even 2 at this level if he keeps it up the way he is, because he obviously did say that he changed his nutrition and a couple of other things to accommodate for father time, if you will. So we'll see where it goes, but right now it is just very nice to see, and odd to watch, I would say, because it is special to have a defender with this skill set to do the things that Mats Hummels does, to be honest, on the football field. And when he retires, I don't think we'll see a player quite like him anytime soon again. So I personally, I'm just glad that we get to see stuff like this, even if it's just a scoreless draw against Man City, who are not even playing Kevin De Bruyne. So, but Manchester City are still a very good team, and you need a very good defensive performance in order to shut them out. I don't think a lot of teams have managed that, although Copenhagen did as well. Obviously we can't end the City segment without a shout out to Gregor Kobel, because he did save the penalty, and I did ask on Twitter when the last time it was that Kobel saved one. Apparently it was against Sporting last season, but I'll be honest, Lars, I don't think a lot of penalty saving has been going on from Dortmund keepers in recent years. So but something told me that he was going to save that somehow, and just nice to see.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're not going to find too many Dortmund aficionados being angry at Kobe saving a penalty. I did not remember the one against Sporting myself either. I looked up when Burki last saved one, and I obviously remembered him saving one against Lautaro Martinez of Inter in the Champions League a few years ago. And that was basically it. I think that's, at least by data of transfermarkt.de, that was the only penalty Burki ever saved. There was another one missed by Fabinho in a Monaco Champions League game in 2017.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's the depths we have to go to. And I think before then, outside of penalty shootouts, which shouldn't count because obviously you have much more options to save one, I think we can almost go back to Burki against Arjen Robben. So Burki, I said Weidenfeller, yeah, Weidenfeller against Arjen Robben. So I'm not necessarily sure that this is going to ring in the golden age of Dortmund goalkeepers against penalties, but as we alluded to earlier, probably got them the ticket to the knockout stages with a game to spare, and with the schedule being as it is, it's very nice going into the Copenhagen game with what should be Dortmund B, the likes of Alex Meyer, Felix Passlack, Tom Rote, Emre Can, Anthony Modeste, and whoever else is going to be available. I mean, basically, if Terzic even thinks about playing Bellingham from the start in Copenhagen,
I will hold a pillow up and a gun next to it, and I will quietly relieve him of his duties. I think, because it would be a crime to play Bellingham in this game. I'm sorry.
I think you were spending too much time in America, Stefan.
Yeah, maybe that that could be. I'm just watching too many movies on planes. No. But yeah, I almost was annoyed that Bellingham came on against Hanover, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I mean, he is very much overplayed, and you can see it a little bit. So any break that he can get would be nice. Ideally, just don't even make him travel to Copenhagen, but let him relax or do whatever needs to be done on a training ground in Dortmund. But yeah, I would appreciate if he doesn't even travel. I'll be honest. But we'll see what lineup we then see against Kopenhagen. But you're right. It needs to be the BES team that you can find, although the depth isn't high enough right now. But let's look forward to Saturday's game. And Eintracht Frankfurt are currently playing as we're recording against Marseille, and I think they're 1-0 up right now. And I'll be honest, Eintracht Frankfurt, outside of Dortmund, that I obviously love to watch because they're Dortmund, are probably my favorite team to watch this season. I'm a big Kolo Muani fan already. I think he is a fantastic signing. He is a striker that can create for himself and for his teammates, and it's just a whirlwind. Obviously, still a bit of a diamond in the rough, but already is doing a lot of damage. So I think he scored 4 goals and assisted 7 in all competitions. So these are pretty good stats right now. I think the most dangerous player Frankfurt have is Kamada, who has scored 10 overall, and Jasper Lindström, when they destroyed who was it? I think Leverkusen, had a really nice dink over the keeper as well. So it's just nice to see that Eintracht Frankfurt have retained their form after the Europa League win, and even though they get routed on the very first Bundesliga match against Bayern, I think by now have found their shape and are a very strong Bundesliga side, and are fun to watch, and are enriching the Bundesliga as a competition. And so I'm very happy with Frankfurt right now. How do you see Dortmund approach this very difficult game? Because obviously last year they won in Frankfurt after being 2-0 down and had a nice comeback, but I'm not entirely sure how this one is going to pan out.
I think the only time I've actually watched Frankfurt this season
was the first game.
No, as you know, I don't tend to watch Bayern games in the Bundesliga, so I think it was when they beat Leipzig like 4-1. It was also Saturday evening kickoff, Topspiel as we call it, but I watched it with a couple of mates in a pub, basically. So
nice.
I might have looked into the glass more often than on the TV screen. But I do remember.
Are you drinking Kölsch, by the way? I've never asked this.
No. I do remember more from the second game we watched that evening, which was Hamburger SV against Karlsruhe SC. So yeah, I mean, obviously we kind of know what Frankfurt are at this point. You already mentioned Kolo Muani and Kamada. There's obviously also Götze. You also mentioned Lindström. They are a side that does really well in these big moments, as evidenced by their run to the Europa League final, in which I guess they were a little bit lucky, considering how the game went, because if memory serves, Rangers went in front via penalty, right?
Yeah.
And then the equalizer, I seem to recall it was a bit scruffy. Nevertheless,
it was also really well created by whatchamacallit, their former wingback.
Kostic?
Player Kostic, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Frankfurt did what Dortmund couldn't do, and not only beating Rangers, but winning the damn trophy. So everything Frankfurt had come their way over the last few months and years has been worked hard at. Not the easy way out with, investors and whatever, but just through honest, good work, good decision making, good coaching, especially with Oliver Glasner, who's probably the best Bundesliga coach nobody outside of Germany has ever heard of. A lot of just smart transfer business. They got Kolo Muani off Nantes on a free transfer, not because he desperately wanted to join the Europa League winners, but he actually had signed before then, just because Markus Krösche, the sporting general manager, was one of the first ones to knock on his door and talk about a move to a bigger league or bigger club. They got Götze back to Germany and have dealt with all that comes with that, the media attention that Götze attracts and all that. They've dealt with that without any issues. I think from what I can tell, which is, as I said, not necessarily too much, but it seems like Götze has a pretty decent shot as well at making the World Cup squad, as does Hummels, as we talked about earlier. So just all in all, as you said, Frankfurt, one of the best Bundesliga sides these days. And I think their home record this season is very strong. They just beat Gladbach away from home. Obviously, Gladbach having a bit of a personnel issue these days, but still one of the first sides to beat Gladbach this season. So I have no idea how Dortmund approach this game. I obviously will watch the rest of the Frankfurt game, or catch whatever is put on the simulcast whenever we're done with this recording. But I think just in general, away to Frankfurt these days is one of the 3, 4, 5 hardest matches of the season. So as ever the optimist, as I'm known in the Yellowwallpod community, I'm desperately hoping for at least a draw.
Yeah, I honestly think that a draw will be an excellent result for Dortmund. Obviously, if you look at the table, it's not going to help them much, but I really don't think that Dortmund go there and just thump Frankfurt. If anything, it could rather be the other way, because Frankfurt this season have done some serious damage against other teams. They've also beaten Union Berlin 2-0, something that not many teams have managed. Obviously, Bochum recently, but I think obviously they beat Gladbach. I did not see that game, but I did beat them. I did see them beat Leipzig, and I did see them beat Leverkusen, even though beating Leverkusen nowadays not that impressive. But Frankfurt do it always in an impressive fashion, because they have a nice attacking flow, and they have a lot of automatisms going, and I think every player sort of knows their roles, and as you said, they're extremely well coached. Their defensive structure is also very formidable, although I think in Bundesliga they have already conceded 18 goals, which is 4 more than Dortmund, but they have also scored 24 goals, which is 6 more than Dortmund. So I'm not very optimistic about Saturday. Maybe it helps that Dortmund have one more day to recover, but then again, Dortmund did play against Manchester City, and especially the last 20-25 minutes or so must have been extremely straining for Dortmund, because Man City had all the ball and were just passing it around, and Dortmund had to close the gaps, which is very tiring. So I don't know who will be fit for that game. Obviously, ideally, you would want to see Gio Reyna play, but I do not know if he is already fit enough for a third start in 7 or 8 days. I'm not entirely sure about that. So we'll see what Dortmund team we will get. But yeah, all I know is that it's probably going to be a very entertaining game for the neutral. I'm just not sure if it is also for Dortmund fans. But I think what is overall positive for Dortmund is that Karim Adeyemi is starting to become a little bit better. I'm not too jazzed about his overall decision making nowadays. Against City, you could see after he missed that first chance where he was free on goal, he had a chat on the sideline with Terzic, who told him to basically, whatever you do, just freaking pass the ball. And then he nearly had an assist for Moukoko and nearly an assist for Reyna. So maybe that is more positive, but I don't want to be too insulting, but sometimes he is on Timo Werner level of decision making. So I think that needs to be improved. But if we also look at overall trends for Dortmund, I think it is also positive that Yusuf Moukoko is now starting regularly and doing, I would say, fairly well for a 17-year-old who is easily outmuscled by big, tall defenders, and I think he is holding his own particularly well. And obviously what also helps is that Charlie Özcan will be well rested after missing the game against Manchester City due to his suspension. So the fact that Dortmund managed to close down or shut down Man City without Özcan is all the more impressive. So yeah, I don't know what what the fullback situation is. It's maybe one interesting one, Lars, because would you play Torgan Hazard again as a left back, or I don't even know if Guerrero will become available or not, but just off your observations against Manchester City, do you think that's a viable option going forward, or do you think this is a one-off lucky guess by Terzic, but nothing that can be replicated with consistency?
I mean, Hazard is quite adept at playing wing-back for Belgium. He's actually played on both sides for Belgium, if I'm not mistaken. So I think sometimes we get caught up in the nomenclature of these positions. I don't know that playing wing-back is like an entirely different pair of shoes compared to playing left back for a usually quite dominant in terms of possession side like Dortmund. So if the alternative is playing a not quite fit Guerrero or Tom Rote, who's just not necessarily ready for prime time, as it were, then I think it makes sense to keep riding the quote-unquote hot hand in Hazard. But I don't necessarily think that either of those situations is going to make or break Dortmund's chances against Frankfurt. I think Frankfurt right now are playing with Dina Ebimbe on the right side, who's a learned central midfielder, but because Ansgar Knau, for example, isn't healthy right now, and a few of their other solutions for the right wing haven't really panned out, they've pushed Ebimbe on to the right side. He's very athletic, from what I can tell, but obviously being someone trained in central midfield, you would assume, and you might correct me because you obviously love watching Frankfurt by your own admission, but you would assume that Frankfurt's attacking play isn't going to center wholly on their makeshift right wing back. So
No.
How Dortmund react to that, I don't know if that's a make or break kind of decision.
Yeah, it's interesting that Frankfurt this season compared to last season and the seasons before, because of Kostic, combined a lot through the left side. Nowadays, I would say that they are actually doing a lot through their own midfield, because with Dibrilso and Daichi Kamada, they have a very healthy double pivot, and obviously in front of that with Mario Götze, who is, of course, roaming through the half spaces. What else would he do? You know, they have a lot of fluidity and the ability to create a lot of triangles in the final third of the field. And yeah, I think Jesper Lindström, also a player. He's obviously more of a, in my view at least, a false nine. But he does play a bit behind Muani, who also is often playing on the wings, but you know, fast dribbly player, likes to attack through the half space and whatnot. But my point being is that they are all very centrally focused, let's say, and yeah, so I don't know if the fullback position will matter as much. But then again, you know, they also just do like to counter. So in that regard, I think having Hazard's pace is actually quite a help. So yeah, if not, I don't know what state Marius Wolf is in. All I heard is that he had some sort of illness, but yeah, must have been relatively severe because he was out for it for quite a while. So it must have been a very dangerous case of the man flu. But yeah, I just wanted to say that Jesper Lindström has also really matured for Frankfurt and is much better on the ball and has matured in his finishing, if you will, because in the past I always thought he had like very good you know, initial plays, but then somehow ruined it by his own ineptitude, and he has managed to just improve overall as a striker and as a player, and I think you can see that. And I'm really interested to see what Terzic will do against Frankfurt's very good back three, because with Tuta and Dika and Jakic in the middle, I think they have one of the strongest back threes or center back triplets, if you will, of the league. And of course, Kevin Trapp on top of that is really probably in the best form of his life right now. So really well run a team, and I'm of course singing their praises, and hopefully that means that Dortmund will somehow beat them. But if I have to give a scoreline prediction, I'm going with a 2-2 draw.
Yep, for the sake of difference of opinion, I'm going for a wacky 3-3 draw.
Okay. Well, anyway, thank you so much for talking through these games with me. I'm very much looking forward to Saturday, and hope that it's going to be more positive than I anticipate. But I feel like the recent past has shown that Dortmund, after performances like this in the Champions League or overall, do indeed smell themselves a little bit too much and just cannot replicate it. So if they manage to have a good performance, regardless of the result, that's already would be very encouraging. But I've been burned too many times to bank on that right now. But as always, everyone out there, thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.